I stood at the edge of what had always been my family's 80-acre spread in rural Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, staring through a wrought iron gate that had no business being there. Beyond it lay a neat grid of sidewalks, streetlights, freshly mowed lawns, and row after row of identical beige, split-level homes. 58 of them. I counted twice to be sure. A woman in her mid-40s strode toward me, heels clicking on the asphalt like she owned the place, which apparently she thought she did. She wore designer sunglasses, a pearl necklace, and a smile sharp enough to slice bread. "Excuse me," she said, voice thick with fake courtesy. "This is private property, Willow Creek Estates. Residents and guests only." I blinked, still trying to make sense of the impossible scene. There must be some mistake. This is my land. My father's land. I inherited it. She laughed, a short cutting sound. "I'm Karen Whitaker, president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. I can assure you this isn't your land. I suggest you leave before I call the sheriff for trespassing." My fingers tightened around the faded deed in my pocket, the one my grandfather had signed in 1947. This was going to get interesting. 3 years earlier, my father had passed after a quick, brutal fight with cancer. I'd stood at his graveside holding the deed to those rolling meadows, the creek along the eastern edge, patches of old-growth timber, the land he'd worked his whole life to keep in the family. The timing couldn't have been worse. I just signed a 2-year contract for a major demolition job in the Middle East. The pay was enough to expand my business back home, maybe even settle down someday. Dad had pushed me to take it. "Build your future, son," he'd said. I'd left old Mr. Harlan, our neighbor for 30 years, in charge of checking on the place. At 78, he was sharp as a tack and lived on the next 5 acres over. Every week, he'd text photos and updates. Everything was fine until 18 months ago when the messages stopped. 3 weeks later, I learned he'd died peacefully in his sleep. His daughter left a voicemail. I was neck deep in the overseas project. No breaks, no easy flights home. I sent flowers and a donation, feeling like dirt for not being there. That's when it must have started. With no one watching, someone saw an opportunity. That someone was Karen Whitaker. The next day, I sat in my lawyer's office in Lancaster. Tom Riley spread documents across his desk. County seals, notarized signatures, all looking official. But they were fakes, he said, sophisticated ones. According to these, Tom explained, your property was declared abandoned for unpaid taxes. It went to county auction. Karen Whitaker bought it for $4,800. But I never missed a payment, I snapped. Automatic drafts, bank records, receipts, everything. Exactly. Those prove the documents are fraudulent. The problem is her husband, Ron Whitaker, is deputy county administrator. He oversees property records and tax assessments. My stomach dropped. She'd married into the perfect position for land fraud. It got worse. She'd subdivided the 80 acres into 58 lots, sold them to a development firm for $4.2 million. The houses went up fast, cheap construction, 14 months from groundbreaking to move-ins. Families paid $300,000 to $450,000 each, thinking they were buying legitimate homes. Kids, dogs, mortgages, they were victims too. We could prove the forgery, Tom said, but it would take time and money. The bigger question, what happens to those families when we win? I drove back that evening and parked across from the entrance. Kids shot hoops in driveways. An older couple walked their dog. Normal life built on stolen ground. The next morning, I went straight to the HOA office, a converted colonial in the development center. Marble counters, leather chairs, fresh flowers. Not volunteer work. This was a business. Karen looked up, annoyance flashing. You again? I thought I made myself clear. We need to talk, I said, closing the door. I have the original deed, 30 years of tax records, my father's will. This land is mine, and you know it. For a split second, something crossed her face. Not guilt, but calculation. Then the smile returned. That's sweet. You have some old papers and think they matter. My husband oversees county records. The records show I bought this legally at auction. Permits, surveys, everything approved. What do you have? A yellow deed from 1947? Take me to court. Spend 5 years and $500,000 fighting. And even if you win, what then? Bulldoze 58 houses? Make 58 families homeless? How's that playing court? In the papers. She'd thought of every angle. This was an amateur hour. I left, not because she'd scared me, but because I needed a better plan. Karen Whitaker had made one fatal mistake. She'd underestimated how good I am at tearing things down. My company specializes in it. I spent serious money fast. Tom connected me with Laura Hayes, a private investigator who lived for fraud cases, and Dr. Alan Park, a forensic document expert who'd testified in federal court dozens of times. 3 weeks later we met. Laura laid out a timeline. The Whitakers moved to the county 8 years ago. Ron got deputy administrator within months. Fast track. 2 years later, he controlled records and auctions. 18 months back, my land got flagged abandoned. The delinquency notice supposedly mailed to me, never sent. No tracking, no receipt. Ghost entry. Alan confirmed. Signatures forged, high-res scans of real seals printed on county paper. Inside job. Ron, almost certainly. Laura had more. Thomas Reed, county tax assessor, processed the declaration and auction. Nervous guy in his 50s. She'd interviewed him. He kept records, emails, texts, notes. Terrified of the Whitakers, ready to flip for immunity. Over the next month, the picture sharpened. Karen spotted the land after Harlan died. Ron flagged it abandoned. Reed faked records. Sham auction, Karen only bidder. $4,800 for land worth millions. Then the smart part, she didn't develop it herself. Sold lots to greenfield builders for millions. They built fast, sold to families. Karen became HOA president, set up a management LLC through her sister, collecting $600 monthly per household. Over $400,000 a year pure profit. She skimmed HOA funds too. Overpriced vendors, her cousin's landscaping, roommate's pool service, kicking back 30 to 40%. Total take, at least $6.8 million. And counting. I started meeting homeowners quietly. A young couple, Emily and Mark Thompson, invited me over. How much did you pay? I asked. $385, Emily said. Why? I showed documents. Their faces went from confusion to shock. So our house isn't legal. Your purchase was real, I said. You were defrauded too, but the land's still mine. They listened. Mark finally asked, what are you going to do? Make it right for everyone. Word spread. Some families joined quietly. The Garcias with 3 kids, the retired Petersons downsizing. But Karen had allies, committee spots, perks. When rumors hit, she struck back. At the next HOA meeting, she stood before 60 angry residents. This man claims he owns our land. Fake documents. He wants to bulldoze your homes and sell for millions. We'll fight him. People shouted. Someone called me a crook. Security escorted me out. But Emily stood. I've seen his papers. They're real. Karen, show us your auction records. Karen's face hardened. Confidential. Meeting adjourned. Cracks appeared. Then Laura called. Phase 2. Permits filed 3 weeks ago. 40 more houses on the remaining 22 acres, using my forged signature. Lots already sold pre-construction. $1.8 million in deposits. Worse, she'd moved boundary markers, claiming extra acres from state forest land. Federal crime. Greed makes people sloppy. Tom assembled the team. Laura, Alan, Jennifer Cole, forensic accountant, me. We had enough for criminal charges. Wire fraud, conspiracy, forgery, money laundering. Thomas Reed flipped fully. Emails, texts, even notes from calls. Pennsylvania's 2-party consent meant recordings inadmissible, but they corroborated everything. Jennifer traced money. Transfers to Karen's accounts, kickbacks. Sloppy. We filed. Quiet title action for ownership, civil suits for damages, criminal complaints to state AG and FBI. Karen fought dirty. Notices stapled to my trailer. Unauthorized structure, $500 per day fines. Ron sent inspectors. Harassment. She called emergency meetings, painted me as the villain. Media ran twisted stories. Local businessman demands millions from families. Death threats hit allies. Coalition wavered. Then she overplayed. She met me in my office with hired muscle, ex-military types. Offered $2 million to drop everything. Threatened my team, the families. If I go down, everyone does. I recorded all. FBI wanted more. They wired me for one last meeting at a private estate. Karen poured whiskey. Drop it. $2 million cash. Dale's charges vanish. I have dirt on prosecutors, judges. I pressed. She admitted blackmail, threats to ruin families' lives. No deal, I said, playing the recording. FBI burst in. Arrested for intimidation, extortion, obstruction. She screamed as they cuffed her. The trial was brutal. Ron cooperated, pleaded to lesser counts, got 8 years, testified Karen masterminded everything. Thomas Reed detailed forgeries. Laura, Jennifer, Alan presented ironclad evidence. My wiretape played. Jury shook heads. Karen took the stand, denied everything. Prosecutor tore her apart. Guilty on all 17 counts. Sentenced to 12 years federal prison, $7.5 million restitution. Barred from HOA roles forever. Ron got 8. Thomas probation. Civil side. Seized assets, funded restitution. I sold land parcels to families at fair value. Restitution covered most. They paid little for clear titles. Payment plans, no interest. I subsidized struggling ones. HOA dissolved. New one formed, democratic, transparent. Named after Harlan and my dad. Harlan Fields. Houses needed fixes, shoddy wiring, plumbing, foundations. My crews repaired at cost. One day, Karen's daughter, Rachel, appeared. Mid-20s, quiet. I wanted to apologize for my mother. She's not a good person. Never was. She'd cut ties years ago. Had a son now, wanted him raised honest. She wrote apology letters to every family. We delivered them together. Later, letters arrived from other victims. Karen and Ron had done this before. Different counties, same scam. FBI reopened cases. More justice followed. A year later, Harlan Fields held its first community barbecue. 200 people. New president thanked me publicly. A playground memorial garden honored Dad and Harlan. I sat on the old homestead porch at sunset, watching kids play, families laugh. The land was alive again. Not empty, not stolen, but home to people who deserved it. Karen's greed built 58 houses on my land. But in the end, those houses became a real community, built on fairness, not lies. Too bad for her. She picked the wrong guy to steal from. Now I'd like to hear from you. Have you ever faced injustice or abuse of power? Maybe an overreaching HOA, a corrupt official, or just plain bullying in life? Did you stand up, or wish you had? What's your take on when it's right to fight back, even if it risks everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. Real stories, real opinions. Your voice matters.